Unpack this. We're starting today with a really vivid image from the source material.
Yeah, that contrast it paints. Dusty streets and stadium lights.
Exactly. It really hints right away at some kind of incredible journey, a massive transformation.
And the source we're diving into, it's actually not the full book, is it? It's more of a preview.
That's right. An excerpt promoting a book called Goals of Glory is by Obsidian A. Freeman, published by Fazioli Publishing.
Got it.
So our mission here in this deep dive is really to go through this preview. We're
Yeah.
going to pull out the compelling bits, the key ideas.
And figure out why the source is calling it this blueprint and battle cry. What makes it tick, basically.
Exactly. What are the nuggets in this description?
And right at the heart of it, the excerpt introduces this figure, Edgar.
Right, Edgar. And the promise seems to be a story about, well, discipline, grit.
And that shift, that really interesting shift from just personal success to something bigger, like a collective win.
So let's set that scene the source gives us. It paints a very specific picture. Edgar, age 14. Place called Klip Road.
Barefoot on a cracked field, future totally up in the air, pockets empty. It really emphasizes that starting point.
It does. No material resources to speak of. But it's careful to point out what he did have.
Which was nothing but a notebook.
Right. And that core motivation, this powerful hunger, it says, to rewrite his story.
Yeah, that hunger, the source almost positions it as his initial investment capital, you know.
Good way to put it. And that hunger, it pushed him towards trading.
Self-taught, too, the source says, using a borrowed laptop.
Which just sounds incredibly risky when you think about it. It really underlines the gamble he took, that leap.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't smooth sailing. The excerpt is pretty blunt about that part. It says he fell hard.
Right. Not just a little stumble, fell hard. It implies a really significant setback.
Definitely. Not just a simple learning curve. It was something major they felt needed mentioning.
Okay, so he falls hard, but then the source pivots, doesn't it? It talks about his recovery and then this huge expansion. How does it frame him getting back up?
It says he rose again, but came back stronger, sharper, more focused.
Ah, okay. So the failure itself was part of the process, a refining process maybe.
Seems like it. And then it just lays out the sheer scale of what he's doing now, according to the source anyway.
And the scale described is pretty vast. He owns a football club.
Runs farms across Africa.
Mentors rising stars.
And builds these things the source calls cities of hope.
Wow, cities of hope. I mean, that's a remarkable arc from barefoot on a cracked field.
It really is. It suggests that, the resilience wasn't just about getting back what he lost. It fueled something much, much bigger.
Like channeling that initial hunger, maybe amplified by the setback, into this broader impact.
Exactly. Beyond just personal gain.
So the book itself, Goals of Glory, the source doesn't make it sound like some dry biography.
No, not at all. It calls it a bold, emotional, high-stakes story.
And it seems like it traces how those core ideas, discipline, grit, how they actually make that leap possible, from the individual win to the collective one.
And the journey it describes covers a lot of ground, setting-wise.
Yeah, it mentions the trading floors in South Africa, that intense starting point for the financial side, probably where that grit got forged early on.
Makes sense. And then it shifts to farmlands, Kenya and Ghana specifically.
Reflecting these big agricultural projects, clearly with an Africa-wide focus.
And then you got the roaring stadiums, CF Champions League.
Which is like the top tier of African club football.
Right.
So that implies a pretty high-profile sports operation.
Definitely suggests scale. And then finally, the source mentions villages. Villages being transformed by football stars.
Stars who become builders of hope.
Yeah. That last point really drives home the whole collective impact thing, doesn't it? Success feeding back into the community.
Okay, so pulling back a bit, who is this book for? Based on this preview, who are they trying to reach? The source is pretty specific.
It seems to be aimed at, dreamers. People who want more than just survival.
Leaders too, right? Leaders who think success should be, shared.
Exactly. And maybe the most powerful line is who it's for. Anyone who gets that idea that your roots don't define your reach.
That really sums up Edgar's journey from Klip Road, based on this description.
Totally. And it speaks directly to people who felt underestimated.
Or people who've faced pain, setbacks, and are looking to turn that into something purposeful.
And specifically, it mentions people who believe in building. But what's the phrase? Not just wealth, but worth.
Ah, yes. Wealth versus worth. That feels key.
I think so, too. Because that distinction helps explain the collective triumph part, right? Wealth might come from the trading, the initial success.
But the worth.
The worth, as presented here, comes from the farms feeding people, the clubs creating opportunities, the mentoring, transforming those villages.
So the argument seems to be that applying wealth for collective good is where the real lasting worth is built.
That seems to be the core message coming through in the preview.
Which explains why they'd call the book a blueprint and battle cry for that audience.
Right. It's offering a potential path, the blueprint, and also that motivational push, the battle cry, for making success count for more than just yourself.
Makes sense. And for anyone listening who's intrigued by this,
The source gives a clear call to action. You can grab a copy of Goals of Glory now,
it says look for Obsidian A. Freeman, either on the Fazioli Publishing Store online,
or just on Amazon, readily available there too.
and they suggest following at Fazioli Publishing for more updates.
And there's that hashtag too, hashtag Goals of Glory, inviting people to share their own dreams. Makes it kind of interactive.
So summing up this dive into the source, we've got this incredible trajectory. Barefoot kid, nothing much materially,
Faces a major fall, gets back up stronger.
and ends up building these huge ventures farms, football, mentoring that impact communities across a continent.
It's presented as a story about turning personal drive, personal recovery, into something that lifts others up too.
A real force for collective good, as the source frames it.
So maybe a final thought for you, listening. Think about that difference the source highlights, building wealth versus building worth.
How might shifting your own focus, even a little, from just personal fortune towards, collective futures,
Yeah.
how might that change the impact of success? Not just for you, but maybe in your own community, your own work.
Something to chew on.